Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure?
It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the office. Welcome to the morning grind. I'm here. Last night was amazing. Last night was absolutely amazing. If you didn't see the dinner and a board game last night, I played Elf Quest number 4, and that was crazy. It was crazy. It was so much fun. Last night's episode, Dinner and a Board Game, episode 1. Dinner and a Board Game episode. Well, I don't actually know what episode it was. Dinner and a Board Game, Elf Quest 4. It was a lot of fun. Late night, though. So I got up just in time for the morning grind here. So, all right. Good morning, James. I know James doesn't have a whole lot of time. We'll have to catch up. James, Brent, good morning. Zero the Blade, good morning. And good morning to all of the channel members. And I appreciate all of you who keep us going. If you're enjoying the kinds of things we're doing here on the morning grind and on the channel in general, I really appreciate all of the channel members. Good morning, Stray. And Keith, I see Keith here. Good morning. All right. Yeah, the elf so far has been unstoppable. Oh, Robert reports in persistent game coordinates achieved. JavaScript increments coordinates. JavaScript increments coordinates when directions typed. Game console updated and appended to system prompt. When instructed, game displays correct console. I'm building a persistent matrix. That's what it sounded like right there. Yes. Robert's been working on using AI to run like a text-based adventure game. And making a lot of progress. All right. So what we are talking about today, first of all, we're going to be talking about the Matrix here. And we're talking about the Matrix because that came up yesterday. Retro Nerd Girl brought up the Matrix yesterday, and it had been so long since I've seen it, but I really enjoyed the movie. I didn't actually have time to watch the whole thing, but I watched the first few minutes of it before dinner and a board game yesterday. I went, oh, yeah, because I was trying to remember exactly how things went. And I went, oh, yeah. And of course, I realized then why I really liked this movie. It's been so long. So I need to watch the whole thing again. But I watched basically Act 1 last night, and then before and after dinner and a board game. And so we're going to go ahead and discuss what I see in that based on what our discussion was yesterday. I guess this is kind of like returning to the original idea where we were looking at role-playing games. But the first thing we were doing was just looking at their main conflict resolution systems. Then later we ended up kind of like evaluating the whole thing together. But in this case, we're kind of just taking a movie and taking a look at Act 1 at the moment, because that's what I'm working on as far as the story writing goes. So taking a look at Act 1 is important. I might have more to say about Star Wars in Act 2 and Act 3 as I go and I get to that in by writing. But like I said, most of that is much more direct and clear in a lot of other writing books on story structure. So at the moment, that seems less important, but who knows what will come up as I get there in my own writing and actually start to pay more attention to Act 2 and Act 3. And then also books like The Dynamic Story Creation by Maxwell Alexander Drake. Also talk about things that story does that it does very well. And other reasons, and of course, there are other reasons that it is successful other than its story structure. Maxwell Alexander Drake talks about its themes and how Star Wars uses its theme of technology versus faith extremely well in the movie. So you take the structure, but then also you layer on a whole bunch of other things. But when we had see, as James says, I think that a stream that compares and contrasts the Matrix and Star Wars would be interesting. It's been done before ad infinitum, but it's never not interesting. Well, we could, compare and contrast like Neo and Luke. All right. Yes. Okay. So what I've done, the reason I'm wearing my headphones right now, first of all, let me bring up, is so that I can bring up this movie. Oh, let's breathe and sip. So here we go. Got your drink this morning? I do. Right here. So, yes, let's take two deep breaths, complete inhales, complete exhales. Do it with me now. This is the mental health portion of the show. And then take a sip of your favorite beverage this morning. So here we go. And sip. All right. So let me bring up a place where I can type some notes. Because it also, what I was, the Matrix. I was just typing this up. The Matrix. Lord, might be a long day. The Matrix. Act 1 notes. The main character's movie is not Luke Skywalker. That is true. All right. The Matrix. Notes. Act 1 notes. Is this movie? I see a whole lot of the elements in it, but it also does a few non-standard things. But also it does a lot of things also very standard. It asks some what ifs. This movie asks some what ifs in Act 1, which is the trope. But it's showing you the other side of it, a side of it that we often do not see, which is interesting. So the reason I was wearing my headphones is so that I could put up the Matrix on my screen if I needed to, and that way I'm not, going to get like copyright struck or something. But if I need to actually bring up the film or listen to it, I can do that right here on my side as we're typing up notes and things like that. So let me ensure that I can do that. The Matrix. There we go. Okay, it's coming through here if we need to. Okay. Oh, for some reason, the visual isn't playing. Well, it's always something, isn't it? Well, all right. We'll just see. I can bring it up on my other screen too. All right, anyway. All right, let's get started here. So let me bring up this. Oh, and once again, I wasn't even showing you my poor way of typing the Matrix. Okay, so the first thing that I was going to note about this movie, because of course, I'm big on the links and looking at the times and things like that, because I've been big on studying what first happens in the first 10 minutes of movies. When the idea that came up and was so important, especially it's okay. So what is on the first 10 pages of your script? What's actually going to happen in the first 10 minutes of your movie? I went and grabbed a bunch of the movies, or looked at a bunch of the movies that I really enjoyed, and so just had readily available, and then was watched basically all of their first 10 minutes over and over again. So you get like an idea about what actually happens inside the first 10 minutes of a film, especially the ones that you really like and enjoy. And I think a first 10-minute film study is a really good thing to do, because you do learn some interesting things. A lot of things start on action. In this genre, start on action. So we were talking about, do we have a bias for starting on action or not? Well, I think in the area of science fiction, fantasy, action, adventure, things like that, it seems like I have a personal preference to say, oh yeah, we should probably start on action then. We should probably start on action. But there may be reasons why that you shouldn't in any particular case. And then in other genres, you might not want to start on action as well. In the start on action. But I think we need to distinguish. Okay, I got it up on the big screen if we need it over here. Okay, so I guess I don't need these. On the genre start on action, a lot of things in the genre start on action, but I think we need to distinguish make this a bit larger for you. I think we need to distinguish starting the movie or the story or the book or whatever it is, the movie on action, movie/book, whatever, on action, versus starting the hero on action. So that would be a decision to make. So if we decide, hey, we need to start this movie on action because we want to do something gripping, we want to show off some cool stuff about our world and everything like that, very much like the Matrix does. So we may say, all right, so the right choice is that we want to start this movie on action. But then once you decide, okay, we're going to start the movie on action, does that mean that you're going to be starting the hero on action? Or is the hero, is the action going to come from something else other than the hero? Something other than the hero that ultimately the hero is going to be tied to in some way. Of course, that ultimately the hero will, of course, be tied to. The hero will be tied to. But this allows you, if you're going to start with the hero, if it's most appropriate, if it is most appropriate to start the hero, because the kind of story you're telling, start the hero not in action, slow scene, a slow start, easing you in, then it might be a good idea, especially if you're in a genre that likes action, like science fiction, fantasy, action, adventure, like that. Then it might be a good idea to start the movie elsewhere with action. And of course, we did look at if you wanted to start Star Wars, if you did want to start Star Wars on action, Star Wars, the movie starts on action. Like, for instance, we said Star Wars starts on action. Blockade runner attack. But Luke starts slow. We see him in everyday life and everything like that. So Luke starts slow, but we start on action of the blockade runner. We may see that quite a bit. But if you wanted to, start Luke on action, We looked at this the other day when we talked about how would we put Luke on the blockade runner. To start Luke on action, put him on the blockade runner. And that's a much faster start. And we talked about how to do that over the last couple of days. And what would that mean? That would be a much faster start to the movie, and it would start our hero on action. The Matrix, likewise, starts the movie on action, and because it wants to wow you, show things off, but is also a slow start to the hero. But it's not even all that slow. But the thing is here, it's not even all that slow. It is not even all that slow. In fact, the Matrix, excuse me, it's these late nights. It's not even all that slow. The Matrix actually accelerates Neo greatly. And we're going to look at specifically the scene very much because it wants to play with some what ifs. It happened to work very well. And it's some what ifs that at the moment I'm not thinking that I've been seeing in some other movies. I mean, they might be out there because obviously there are a lot of movies out there. But I went, oh, I see what's happening here. We have we're playing around with some what ifs. So this movie in Act 1. So this movie is a little bit longer. So from their structural perspective, this movie is 2 hours and 16 minutes. A little bit less because sometimes when I'm looking at my story structure and stuff like that, as far as timing, I don't include the time for the outro credits, because you're really over when the credits start to roll. So this movie is something like, it's probably more like about 2 minutes, or it's 2 hours and maybe about 14 minutes long. So it's a little bit longer than Star Wars. It's longer than 2 hours. And so it can take a little bit more time proportionally where it wants to. But, I've been thinking lately a lot about this. It could take time proportionally where it wants. But unlike a book where you can just see what type of, how long the book is and where you are in it, anytime, you might abstractly know how long the movie is going to be. But if you're sitting there watching it and it's taking a long time and really slow in order to get you started, you may feel it. So I'm wondering here if even longer movies, if even longer movies start fast, if they start fast, they may take the time. I'm talking about in more modern day storytelling here. They may put that extra time in Act 2 and Act 3. Like if you're gonna make a longer movie in today's kind of the way we're doing stories today, and you're gonna make a longer movie, where do you want to put that time? Do you want to put that time in Act 1 before the hero has even really started his adventure? Or do you want to put it in Act 2 or Act 3 when the hero is actually on the adventure? Probably you might want to go through Act 1 a bit faster and then spend your extra time when the hero is on the adventure. Let me take a look at what's going on in the comments. Oh, you're in layout now, Micah? Oh, that's fantastic. Let's see. Oh, hey, Mike. Oh, and good morning. Oh, good morning. Good morning. Okay. Let's go here. Okay, so this movie then, I really wish I could just have this up on my I wonder why my computer is refusing to display the visual. But anyway, this movie, this movie starts on action. Well, I was wondering if I need something. We have something, or what this term needs to be. We do have something that is analogous to the crawl. The Star Wars crawl. We have the discussion between what's his name? I forget what his name is. You guys will know the guy who ends up being the traitor, because you haven't really even been introduced to him, but you hear his voice in his discussion. We have the discussion between Trinity and the traitor guy. And the reason I say this is kind of like the Star Wars crawl, because this is still invoking a sense of wonder and atmosphere. And it seems like a lot of movies have something like that. The Star Wars is doing that with the overture. We said Star Wars it's the opening crawl, but really what it's doing is it's using music. Star Wars uses music. And it was in the era of the overture. So it uses music and that and your 3 sentences worth of text to bring you into the world and invoke awe or invoke wonder. That's also this, and that we said that opening crawl was 1 minute and 40 seconds, which we said is a lot of time to only say 3 sentences. But interestingly, this opening with Trinity and Cypher, was it Cypher? That just came to me. It might have been Cypher. It might be Cypher, because that's just the name that came to me. Is exactly the same length. Imagine that. That discussion, the phone conversation, is 1 minute 40 seconds. The phone conversation is 1 minute 40 seconds, and so that invokes a sense of wonder. So, I suppose if you're trying to explain history or immerse somebody in a world, you've got about 1 minute and 40 seconds, a minute to 2 minutes, maybe slightly longer. Moana also starts this way. Moana starts with the grandmother telling a story. Moana starts with the grandmother telling a story, and it lasts a little bit longer. It lasts about 2 minutes and 15 seconds or something like that scene. So not an uncommon way to begin invoking wonder and such. Then we start on action. Oh, by the way, it's another, I suppose, great example of this, the movie starting on action and so forth. The Fellowship of the Ring, specifically. The Fellowship of the Ring does this. You can tell that it would be completely inappropriate to start. It's not the right choice. Not the right choice to start Frodo on action. arguably, like I said, you could move Luke to the blockade runner and start Luke on action. We found a way to make that work, but it just seemed it where and arguably it's still the right choice to have him on the farm. But we found a way that we could make that work if we wanted to. We said, now how would we do that if we wanted to move this much faster? But like arguably the idyllic hobbits in the countryside and stuff like that, we're going to start slow. So we want to introduce, and then we're going to ease you into the world of Middle Earth by having you enjoy the Shire and all of that. But nonetheless, we start on action. But the movie starts on action with the prologue that Galadriel is talking about, and that in that case we have war and orcs and bad guys and everything else. So we are starting with action through our introductory scene, and then we're going to ease into this ease you into Frodo. Matrix, I love the opening scene that drops you into action. Matrix lends you into action, starts on action, and it goes much faster than the Star Wars starting on action, because the Star Wars starts on action with the blockade runner, and then, as we said, goes to it basically tells you an entire Act 1 and part of Act 2 of R2-D2 as a hero, as the hero of the movie. The Matrix starts on action with an incredible Trinity sequence. But by the way, we have connected. We talk about Neo in this 40 seconds. It's cryptic, it's cryptic, but it's there. So we're actually even introducing the idea of him. Something about this. It's cryptical. It's cryptic. We even talk about him, but then we jump into this incredible action sequence, which introduces so much about the world, the telephones, the agents. The way that Trinity and the agents can fight, the relationship between the agents and the police, that the fact there's somebody speaking over the phone, Morpheus is there, talking about what's going to happen, or, how she can get out and all of that. So you introduce all of that, starts on action with an incredible Trinity sequence. So and we checked this out, Sable Phoenix did this for us last time. So you are starting with the police. Oh, it's a little bit less. Oh, no, it's 1 minute and 30 seconds. I mean, it's fine, but that's 1 minute and 30 seconds. So 1 minute and 30 seconds of this film gives you your cryptic intro that sort of sets the mood. And then at 1 minute, 30 seconds, the action sequence with Trinity starts, and that action sequence goes through 6 minutes and 38 seconds. So that's really, you got 5 minutes. We're going to spend 5 minutes and 8 seconds with Trinity, giving you an incredible high action open. Now we cut to Neo. And what we see here, okay, one of the things that now we cut to Neo, and this scene with Neo, but what you see visually does a lot of work. But one of the interesting things about Neo is that Neo leaves a double life. So effectively, you introduce Neo twice. Because Neo lives a double life, one of the things this Act 1 does is effectively introduce him twice. This is kind of a non-standard thing. He is introduced twice. One for each of his lives. And I've been noticing, the kind of things you do in the event that a hero leads a double life. Okay, when heroes lead double lives, it's unusual. It's unusual for a hero to begin the movie when you're talking about an origin story. I guess if you're talking about Batman, when Batman is actually starts off being Batman, okay, he's going to start off leading a double life. But it seems if you're going to do the hero's journey, well, with a classical type of hero, it seems like the journey often begins with that person not leading a double life. Unusual to start this way. Like Peter Parker does not begin living a double life because he's it's not until he gets bitten by the spider and all of that and becomes Spider-Man that he starts leading the double life. So this one's a bit unusual. So this is doing something strange that Neo leads a double life from the beginning. Most heroes start their double life in Act 2 if they're going to have one. And when heroes lead double lives, I often see you going back and forth between the other world and the mundane world in Act 2. This is typically what happens, but what's going to happen in this movie, in The Matrix, is you're going to move, swapping back and forth between the double life into Act 1, which is unusual. Often you switch between the normal world and the other world in Act 2, depending on what life you're leading. And even one of my favorite movies is 21. 21, that's about the MIT card counters. And in that one, of course, you have very clear distinctions between going from the ordinary world, which in this case, the ordinary world is MIT, where he's a college student at MIT, and then he gets on an airplane. I've been noticing a lot of airplane sequences. Airplane sequences are great for transitions, and they tell you we're one place now. There's an airplane takes off, something happens, you see the airplane land, and then boy, you are in the other world after that. The airplane lands in that, and then he's in Las Vegas, where he is this big shot craps player, not craps player, where he is a big shot. Blackjack player and making lots of money. But you're gonna swap back and forth during that movie because he starts leading this double life because nobody knows that he's going out there and making tons of money counting cards. And so during that act, that sequence, you're going to swap back and forth between MIT and then the life of Las Vegas. If you're doing Batman, then you got sometimes when you're Batman in the underworld, and then sometimes you got when you're Bruce Wayne. Here, Neo is leading a double life, one where he's just an average guy working at software development, the other one where he is this big-time computer hacker who is wanted and being searched for and all of that. So we introduce Neo's everyday life fast. They're going to move through this fast. So like this, I think this is a great example of what we said we would fix about Star Wars if we were trying to produce a script for it today, because we said Luke Skywalker doesn't appear until 17 minutes into the film. Well, this movie's longer, like we said, 2 hours and 16 minutes, but we introduce Neo inside the first 10 minutes. He's not there at the very beginning because we're going to start on action with somebody else, because we're going to start on non-action with Neo. So we go ahead and put somebody who's deeply immersed in the world and can do all the cool fighting and show us what we're headed to. And we spend 5 minutes and 38 seconds with her doing really cool stuff. Then we swap right over to Neo, and the imagery that we see, I think, communicates so much about this. And we're also so used to seeing this kind of story structure. This is why I think that a lot of people, that maybe the answer now, especially in more modern day stories, is to, well, you can communicate a lot of information about somebody's life, especially visually, and we can move them right into a call for adventure, an inciting incident, and then a call for adventure, which is what happens to Neo almost directly. We introduce Neo in his office Or like in his apartment. In his apartment. I guess it's his home office. But in his apartment, sleeping at his computer. Of course, he's got all this junk around him. It's the computer hacker. I stay up all night and just program on my computer, and that kind of environment that we're in. So we just see him in that apartment, and he's oversleeping, and you get the overshot of him sleeping that tells you what type of environment he's in, and that does a lot of work. I mean, when you see that sequence, which lasts for just a few seconds, you understand what type of person Neo is. The imagery immediately connects you to Neo's everyday life. By the way, this is also a situation where Lou comes up. Lou has brought up that point when Lou brought up this is also not a zero to hero story. When we get here now, Neo's living a pretty pathetic life, and all that's communicated very directly by you're just laying there in front of your computer, asleep, you're falling asleep in your computer with all the junk around you and stuff like that. What kind of there. Neo is already a very competent computer hacker. And he's being handed money. Like in this sequence, he's going to be handed money for something that he's, some kind of computer thing that he's handing off to somebody else. So he's not zero to hero. He's very competent at the very beginning, but whatever he's doing is not appreciated by society. Seconds into this, we have the inciting incident. I hadn't watched this since I was like, is the rabbit the inciting incident? And does she make the call to adventure? No. Okay. So it becomes clear. Let's see. At about, we're still inside the first 10 minutes of this movie. He opens his eyes. Wake up, Neo. 7 minutes, 15 seconds. 7 minutes, 15 seconds. We have the call. We have the inciting incident. The inciting incident. The inciting incident occurs at 7 minutes and 15 seconds, which is pretty incredible because, like I said, they are giving you. We only introduced Neo. What is this? 35 seconds ago, basically. So you get 35 seconds of seeing Neo asleep and what his environment is like and what's going on. And you also see some flashes of what's up on his computer. And then 35 seconds after introducing our hero, we have the inciting incident starts, which is Trinity in his computer. Telling him to wake up and wake up. This is when Neo's life is never going to be the same. This is not the call to adventure, but it is telling him, wake up. Your life is never going to be the same because now Trinity is in your computer and she's communicating to you through your computer. And this is when you do get the call. Right after that, follow the white rabbit. Of what I've been tracking so far, this is one of the fastest ways you move a hero through this. Starting communicate, you taking advantage of the film medium for, first of all, the really cool action scene with special effects that had never been seen before, using bullet time and all of that in that opening sequence with Trinity, and then taking full advantage of the film's visual medium to tell you exactly what type of person Neo is. And then basically, as soon as you meet him, giving him his inciting incident and then telling him what he needs to do. He needs to follow the white rabbit. This is when cool-looking people and a beautiful woman comes to the door. And we talked about the things that might call a guy to adventure. This would be a beautiful woman. And so she's there. And of course, they're all dressed up, to go to the rave or whatever it is, the dance club and everything else. Contrasting with what Neo looks like. And then the guy asks, should we take him with us? should we go? Do you want to come with us? He invites them. He's invited to the club. He was told he needed to follow the White Rabbit. He is invited to the club. That's a call to adventure. Hey, come with us to this dance club, where we're going to be hanging out. The guy asks, should we take him with him? The woman says, definitely. Looks him over and says, yeah. What happens? Neo balks. He refuses the call. Hey, Sable Phoenix. I'm late, and ever so late. So appropriate for coming into the stream at this very moment. Yes. With the White Rabbit. Yes, that's true. Glad you're here. Okay, he refuses the call. No, I have work in the morning. I can't. I think it's I can't, but whatever. He says, I can't. I have work in the morning. He refuses the call. Now that's pretty fast. It's there because sometimes these things develop slowly. Sometimes, like when Luke Skywalker refuses the call, it takes him a while to accept the call. We got to go through a scene here, with Luke Skywalker and stuff. But sometimes these things come very fast, as with C-3PO on board the blockade runner. No, I can't. I've got work in the morning. Then he sees the rabbit tattoo on the woman's body. She leans over and she puts her arm across the other guy and stuff like that. And we see, her side, and she's got the tattoo on. He sees the rabbit tattoo on the woman and then accepts the call. We move fast. And then at this moment, I think that when you're watching this, and then also how it's written, and then as soon as you're editing and stuff like that, it is 9 minutes and 59 seconds into this movie. So we are basically at the 10-minute mark. 9 minutes and 59 seconds. The scene opens at the club. Goes to looking out of place. Okay, obviously Neo is out of place at this club. Like he's all the dancing and everything is going on, but then he is and the music and stuff like that. But he is up against the wall, looking kind of out of place. And then of course that's when Trinity approaches him. We can see exactly if this was going to now see we're about to start it over again. We're about to do something non-standard, and we're about to start it over again. But Trinity approaches him at that moment. If this were Luke Skywalker, he's at a club. This is when you would get the molested by alien smuggler at a bar scene, and then you would introduce somebody with supernatural aid. So we're moving a bit faster than that. So Neo is not. We don't see him like get molested by the alien smuggler. That didn't happen. But we certainly get that he is out of place. Well, kind of like Luke Skywalker kind of being uncomfortable at the bar, at the cantina. Well, we got the same kind of thing with Neo right here. And then in the cantina, Obi-Wan Kenobi intervenes. And this time it's Trinity that intervenes. Everybody else is looking cool and having a great time at this bar. But then Trinity comes up and has a discussion about the Matrix. And she's is R still here? I think that what's going on in this, R will appreciate this. I think this is why I was misremembering or trying to say, is she giving him a call to adventure right here? But I think she is definitely trying to get him to come with her. She is trying to get him to come with her. There's a sexual element here. She leans in. We already know because Cypher says you like him, don't you? So that's already been introduced in that opening scene. that opening a minute and 40 seconds. There's a sexual element here. But we kind of, what we have is kind of a second refusal. And I want to say, because oftentimes there's not time for a second refusal, but it's because we've got this dual life, and we're going to try to introduce the dual lives here. And then also we need to introduce the dual lives, and then they're going to do something non-standard again when we have the danger coming home. Sexual element here, but it's implied that he does not go with her. She's too cool for him at this moment. Alarm goes off. And now Neo, so this is the bar is kind of like another world. Okay. And that's why I think it's working here, because you go to the bar as kind of like another world. But then you come back out of it, the alarm goes off, and now you are in Neo's normal world. Where he has to go to work. C-3PO said, I'm going to regret this. Yes. Trinity is serving as the herald in this role, isn't she? Yes. Oh, see, okay. I'm so glad. Okay, I'm so glad you came in, because this was prompted by your request. So I was watching or your discussion of this, or bringing this up, and it had been so long since I watched this movie that I watched the first act, and these are my yesterday, and so these have been my first thoughts on what's going on inside this first act. Good morning, Andrew. Good morning. Yes, I think so. Well, I think that's true. Trinity is telling him what to do. Even when she's in the computer saying, "Follow the white rabbit." Here's your. So it could be that moment is the call to adventure right there. What you need to do is follow the white rabbit, because he doesn't accept or reject right now because he doesn't understand that command. So, but we see then later when they come up to the door, they see that, and he understands. But they're also inviting him to go someplace. Maybe that's why their romance feels so forced. Oh, Sable says, I always thought it was Morpheus himself messaging Neo and telling him to follow the white rabbit. No, didn't wait, am I wrong about that? Was it Morpheus in the computer? I thought that he said at the bar, it was you and my computer, wasn't it? I thought he said that to Trinity. I could be wrong about that. But I thought that was the line. So here we're starting this. We're going to start a sequence over here, because now we're introducing Neo in his other life, where he has to go to work. And this, you can see how this would be another place you could start with Neo. Because, this is a very classic kind of scene. Oh my God, the alarm clock goes off. I've got to get to my job. I'm running late. I got to get out of there. So this is, I got to get to my standard job. Very classic way to start a hero, right? Who's in the mundane world. It seems, now I'm talking this out. The reason that you don't, because what do? Do you put Neo as hacker everyday life first, or do you put Neo as software guy first? You need some. They put the hacker first, it seems, because that's the one's going to connect to Trinity. Because we've just seen Trinity, but the hacker start connects Neo to Trinity, who we saw in the opening action scene. Yeah, I know. It's been. I can't believe it's been so long since I had watched this movie. Retro Nerd Girl, so awesome. Positive fandom says Trinity is also attracted to Neo. She's aware of this attraction and it affects her behavior. Yes, it does. From the very beginning, that it's affecting her. Like, why would you take somebody else's work shift in that very beginning? Well, it's because she's attracted to Neo. We still move fast. I agree with Sable and said so yesterday. The rabbit is the message, but the messenger is Morpheus. The rabbit is refused, but then at work in imminent danger, Morpheus calls again, and then away we go. Yes. Okay, so we're getting to that. So then we saw Trinity in the open action scene, and then we go to the basic software building. Where Neo is working and everything is boring. So this is another great everyday life kind of thing for a hero where, and his extreme skills, like this is your creativity. Basically, he's this great hacker, a great computer coder, but this is a very buttoned down software company. And so his skills are not appreciated here. Everything gets boring. Now, why does Neo get another call? So this is when the cell phone is delivered to him, and Morpheus, and it's going to be Morpheus on the phone this time. Let's go here. Why is she attracted to him, though? Just physical. It's hard to reconcile that she's actually in love with him by the end of the film. And Neo is positive fandom says, and Neo is a sweet guy, and so the female gaze loves him. Sable Phoenix says, well, maybe, do you have commentary on this? They certainly don't have any sparks between them. Neo hardly seems to notice her. As established in the club, he's way beyond him in every respect until he breaks into the Matrix code at the end. To me, the romance part is the weakest part of the film. Well, that could be. I have not specifically analyzed the romance part of this film. To me, it kind of seems like I know some couples. I think that I know some couples where the guy has been oblivious, where the guy, where the woman is interested in this guy and wants to have a relationship, and for whatever reasons she sees something in him, wants to have a relationship, but the guy is oblivious basically to her interest and her advances. Possibly because she's beyond him or whatever. And then the guy just seems, and then the woman basically at some point comes up to him and says, hey, you and I would make a great couple. We're starting a relationship now, basically, right? And the guy's like, oh, okay. I know a couple of relationships like that where it was basically the woman just realized that he was just oblivious and going around, and then until the woman just basically says, hey, wait a minute, I'll just be as direct as possible and say that, hey, we're in a relationship starting right now. And the guy's like, oh, okay. And then has been a good relationship as far as you can tell from the outside. So that seems to be the situation here as far as the romance goes. Neo is oblivious. Might be Neo's first relationship, yes, or the first one in a while, right? Yes, at least. James says Trinity can be interpreted as an analog for Mary Magdalene, and so the attraction to Neo's Christ figure was likely forced to facilitate that comparison. Interesting. The attraction to Neo's Christ figure is likely forced to facilitate. Well, I'll think about that side of that definitely more as I watch it again for just enjoyment. But then also, like, we may go into other acts of these different movies later as things come up. Retro Nurgle says Neo has a fear of change, and even though he has a longing for it. Mike, exactly. Typical nerd, tunnel vision on the task at hand and not seeing what's in front of him. Right. In the situations where, like, I see that in the relationships I was talking about that. the guy, yeah, is geeky, is focused on whatever, school. Now, I'm thinking about these kinds of things in college. The guy's focused on school. It could be work, whatever, and is completely oblivious to this woman who is clearly interested in him until she just like basically grabs him by the collar and says, "Hey, it's you and me." But then Neo gets the phone call. Why? Okay, this sequence seems to be a combination of a call. Okay, so a call okay. So they said this is the first time I'm talking through some of this. So there's a call to adventure, but actually, I'm not going to say that. I mean, maybe you can see some of these elements here, but this one seems to be supernatural aid. And it's clearly danger, what I call danger coming home. When the character realizes that if I don't accept the call to adventure, I'm going to die. I might as well accept the call to adventure. I might die if I go accept the call to adventure, but if I don't accept the call, I'm going to die here. So this is clearly danger coming home. And in this case, we do have the supernatural aid from Morpheus to get him out of it. But there is an element of call to adventure here as well. And this is a non-standard way to do it, but I think this works. I mean, clearly it works. I think this is working because because Neo did not follow through with Trinity. At the club. He woke back up the next morning, not with her. All right. So he woke back up the next morning at his office having to go to work. So if he had gone with Trinity right there, then he wouldn't be at work. And I think that's why when I was looking at this earlier, I was like, well, she must have issued a call to adventure. He did not accept it. That part's implied. And so what's about to happen? Danger is about to come home. Because he didn't accept, danger is about to come home to him and realize that he has to accept. The danger from afar. Yeah, I call it danger coming home. Danger from afar. Coming home. All right, yeah. The agents are coming from his now. They are disrupting his routine. Yes. It's so cool how that call changes the tone. Right. It combines the worlds again. Yes. Okay. So Sable says it's also Neo's first test and he fails it. Interestingly, Neo fails nearly all of his tests until almost the end of the film. The first one he succeeds is saving Trinity from the helicopter. So that's what's happening. By the way, we are now, the phone call comes in. If you're keeping track of this like I do, phone arrives at 13 minutes and about 20 seconds. And the reason that I keep track of all that, because if you're writing a script, one page is 1 minute basically when properly formatted. And so when you think about everything that's happened, I mean, the phone call from Morpheus is about to come in his office. But think about, I mean, this movie's moving very fast. There has been a lot that has happened in this opening 13 minutes. You got 13 pages of movie script, and think about everything that's happened. They have clearly taken advantage of a whole lot of visual cues and such, like I said, to move this as forward as possible. So then this is when, so yes, agents in the building. There is no time. You can't ignore what's happening to you. He's forced into the adventure because like all heroes, or like so many heroes, if they don't accept the call, then they don't have another choice. Things are gonna be bad if they don't end up accepting the choice. Mike says, and the threat is not obvious due to the Matrix, as he's also living in the shadow as a hacker, and he's already anxious that somebody could come for him. Yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, there are mundane reasons for him to be afraid as well. Positive Phantom says Neo wasn't going to understand everything or accept everything within the first 30 minutes. I think that when he wraps his arm around the line from the helicopter, is the moment he gets it. Oh, well, right, sure. But what he does have to do, what he has to accept is the call to adventure, because we've got to get him out of Act 1. No, we can still just, it's like saying Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker clearly doesn't understand everything about the Force and all of that in the first 30 minutes. But what he does need to understand is that he has got to go on an adventure. So we have, again, one of my favorite scenes here with him trying to get him, when Morpheus is trying to get him out of the get him out of this. So now when danger comes for you, agents in the building, danger is coming. Do what I tell you to do, and I can get you out of here. Neo obeys to get out of danger. Now, we should be getting out of Act 1 at this point. Something non-standard is going to happen again right here, because once again, you would think we are about to be out of Act 1, because he approaches the threshold. Physically, Neo approaches the threshold, which is that window he has got to get out of. What is this threshold guardian? Well, I think in this case, it's interesting that it's basically the threshold itself. Threshold guardian is effectively the threshold itself, because we're on the outside of the building. If Neo can overcome this, then we're going to be out of Act 1 and we're going to be in Act 2. Neo balks again. It takes a lot. It's interesting. It takes a lot. This movie takes a lot to get Neo into an adventure. I used the word over motivating last time, but I think I actually would use the term super motivating. Like, we really have to. I mean, we try several times to motivate Neo to go on an adventure, and ordinarily you don't have time for that. You know, for somebody to reject and then come back and whatever. But because we're moving through so many things so fast, this movie does it. We are now, when he goes out, I can't go out of this window. That's it, like closing in on 16 minutes. And then Neo tells him, listen, you can either go on the adventure, you can either cross the threshold and go into Act 2, going on your adventure, or you can go out of here in their custody. And so the standard way for this to go is that Neo is finally going. I mean, we're at 15 minutes, so this is a perfectly reasonable time for this. We are going to get out of this window. We are going to be successful at it. And then perhaps Trinity would be waiting for him at the other side or something like that to take him into Act 2 and in the other world. But something bizarre happens. Something non-standard happens. And I think we have time for this. We have time for this to repeat and to go through these kind of sequences again. He fails. He fails is Threshold Guardian. And we have time for all this because we spend so little time with Neo in his ordinary life. They communicated it all very effectively and very efficiently in a small amount of time. What his life is like and so forth. It's there. It's completely present, but they collapsed that. I mean, think about how much time we see Luke Skywalker after the 17-minute mark doing Luke Skywalker boring kinds of things on Owen's farm. We spend much more time with that. We spend like compressed amount of time with that with Neo. Little time with Neo in his ordinary life, so we can do a little bit more in Act 1, which is non-standard. And something really non-standard, like him failing his threshold test. This would be like R2-D2 failing to get by the Star Destroyer super lasers, right? What happened? I mean, everybody was saying in the commentary on Star Wars of the last 2 days, R2-D2 gets in the escape pod, the Death Star, or the Star Destroyer super lasers target the life pod. It explodes. Movie over. If you don't pass that threshold test, movie over. I mean, and in that case, they're just blowing it out of the sky, out of space. But here we have the failure of the threshold test. Ends up in the custody of the agents. Guess what? Movie over. Movie over. Neo fails. World ends. Right, because that's very much like R2-D2 being blown up. Micah says, yes, failure after failure, yet still determined he is what it makes me, and yet still determined is what to me makes for a more heroic story and character. Neo in the Matrix, Arthur you in the never-ending story. Probably pronounced that wrong. Well, I think we're about to get to that again. Good morning, Lady of Pain. Lady of Pain says, that is a great example. The reluctant hero is good in movies, but not RPGs. This is how we adapt story structures to RPGs, story scaffolding for the players. Oh, well, that's a good point. That if you're the game master and you're about to sit down and play an RPG with some players and you set up the adventure for them, you really don't want your players to reject the call to adventure. It's like, no, you can't reject the call to adventure. Here's the adventure. Please, let's go on the adventure. Yes. You don't really want to have to. It's standard. Okay, Mike is saying that it could work, but yes, in the standard way you go when you sit down to play, you really don't want to have to super motivate the player's characters to go on an adventure. Artreyu. Okay, Artreyu. And that's one that's been forever since I've seen. Okay, so movie over, Neo fails, world ends, except for in this case, we have a what if scenario. This is one of the big what if scenarios. If you were to say, what if, hey, can we tell me what would happen if you fail your threshold guardian? What would happen if you fail the threshold guardian and can't get out of Act 1? What if you fail the threshold guardian? Ordinarily, like your answer with R2-D2 being shot out, ordinarily death. Ordinarily answer is death. But could it be something else? And in this case, this is what this is showing you. Well, okay, he's arrested, and then he is taken in for questioning. And it's because, and we're told later, it's because they don't understand his importance. So, Trinity was there. So Trinity was actually, I said, Trinity would be waiting for you, but actually she was, that's exactly who was with. That makes sense. Trinity would have been waiting for him if he had been able to cross his threshold test. And it's Trinity who looks into the rearview mirror of her motorcycle and realizes that he can't, that he has failed. So she was waiting for him to take him into Act 2, but he failed, and now he's in prison. So we could see, we could see a scene like this. Can you imagine a scene like this where R2-D2, where instead of blowing up the life pod, they tractor beam it? Whoa, what's that? So instead of blowing it up, so the agents didn't shoot him, they captured him. So if R2-D2 had been tractor beamed and brought back on board the Star Destroyer, you would have an interrogation scene of Imperial officers and stormtroopers or whatever, maybe even Darth Vader himself. We do have Agent Smith, who is our big bad guy. So that'd be kind of like Darth Vader, who is going to be interrogating R2-D2 to figure out, to figure something out. And in this case, we have a misunderstanding. So they get by this by we have a misunderstanding of of Neo's importance. So if they had tractor beamed the life pod, but then misunderstood why R2-D2 was important and what he was carrying, maybe you could get R2-D2 out of that situation again. They want the bad guys, bad guys, want to use Neo as basically a spy to get to, oh, you know what? Kind of like the secret rebel base, kind of to our good guys. So they want to bug him, so he's bugged. And once again, a crazy kind of scene here, which, visually and all that. So he's bugged because we're going to use him. So this would be like, phew, yeah, they should have just blown R2-D2 up, but they didn't. And now they have misunderstood, but they don't understand the Death Star plans are actually on board, but they're going to bug him to try to use him to infiltrate the rebels. Sable Phoenix says, I know a lot of people who love it, but I think they're talking about the Neverland ending story and nostalgia, right? I think there's a lot of nostalgia from kids, but I know I saw it as a kid, but I basically don't remember it. I can imagine that it could be cringy if you watch it later. Okay. He's bugged. Let's see. Where do we get this does allow a confrontation. So one thing this is allowing that I guess you might I'm going to put a note here. It's possible that one of the things this allows, it's possible one thing this allows is a confrontation between the big bad evil guy and the hero when the hero's arc does not start on action. Because it's pretty easy to come up with a way to have if you want Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker to have an early interaction, it's very easy to think of a way to get that done if Luke Skywalker started on board the blockade runner. But if Luke Skywalker does not start on board the blockade runner, it's a little bit more difficult to come up with a way to get Darth Vader to interact with Luke Skywalker early in the movie. It's not impossible. Like one way that that could happen is if Darth Vader had gone down to Tatooine. But here we basically get because the failure of the threshold test then puts Neo in direct confrontation with the big bad evil guys directly, because he didn't start on action. He started on basic, boring, everyday life. And so now he gets a confrontation. I'll think more about that. I'll think more about that if we ever see that. Because like I said, it's not standard to fail the threshold test. Robert says, in The Matrix, when Neo fails to move forward, the heralds and mentors intervene. At the end of the movie, it's Neo's ability to control the Matrix that intervenes. Don't we have him wake up again? So he gets bugged. Yes. And so, so then we wake up again, and we are at 21 minutes and 36 seconds into this movie. 21 minutes, 36 seconds. Neo wakes up again. So he has escaped. He has escaped without being agentive. He's escaped for no reason that he himself did. For no reason that he had control over. It's entirely due to the misunderstanding. So this is the hero here is not agentive. So he didn't pass his test, but he still didn't die, but he's still not agentive. So we get another call. Yeah, the phone rings again. Isn't it Trinity? It's not Morpheus, right? It's Trinity.
This line is tapped, so I must.
Oh no, it's Morpheus. It's Morpheus who calls. The phone rings again. It is Morpheus on the line. Telling him he's got another chance. And head to the bridge. Yeah, so we're talking about I mean, when Robert's saying that Neo's ability to control the Matrix intervenes, that's definitely agentivity on Neo's part. He's stepping into his role. Yeah, I think so. Just like Luke destroying the Death Star. The shot firing that's destroying the Death Star. Secret knowledge applied to achieve victory for now. Oh, RM says that literally going to watch The Matrix now on the boardwalk. Oh, fun. I know. I can't believe it's been so long since I've seen this movie. So significantly, okay, so Trinity is also there. So it seems like here, significantly, there is not another threshold guardian test. It's not like, let's see, danger doesn't come again. He's bugged. But he doesn't have to, that's interesting. He doesn't have to undergo another test. The team. See, so I guess if you were going to try to rerun this, one thing that would happen is that Neo would need to be agentive, would ordinarily be agentive in getting the bug out. But he's not. Other things are happening to you. And of course, there is the dreamlike element to this as well. Like, was he dreaming when all the stuff happened with the agents, and his mouth closed and he was bugged? He wakes up like, okay, was that all a dream? Okay, there is that as well. He does almost leave the car. Oh, wait a minute. So what exactly is the line? Because I do think that's a significant point. Do you want to do this? And he almost leaves again. It's our way or the highway. Get it? Oh, isn't that something like that? Maybe I should have the Matrix script up. It's something like the woman in white. So something like it's our way or the highway. Get it? And then he steps out, or he goes to step out of the car. But then Trinity stops him. But it's he almost balks. He balks. Trinity stops him. And the team gets the bug out. The team gets the bug out. Sounds like it should be some type of motto for a home bug spray service or something like that. Sable says, I remember the first time I saw The Matrix, I hated it. I felt the scene where they walk into the skyscraper and mow down all the security guards. The checkpoint wasn't even anti-heroic. It was outright murder. Sable says, I've mellowed my judgment on the film since. It's an extremely excellently done film, but that scene still sticks in my crawl. Those guys were just doing their jobs and stood no chance. They did stand no chance. But that's why, yeah, they got to do it fast because the only excuse is the agents can possess them at any moment. Right. Wait, isn't it right here?
Listen to me, Copper Top. We don't have time for 20 questions. Right now, there's only one rule. Our way or the highway?
Our way or the highway. That is what she delivers. Okay. So they get the bug out in the car. And that's when he realizes that, okay, this is real. This is not a dream. There's stuff that's here to do. Then we enter Morpheus. And of course, Morpheus is the mentor figure. Throughout this, and the one who renders supernatural aid. We get the red pill. Blue pill moment. And I was also confused about that because I was like, is that, does Morpheus issue the call to adventure? Or are we in a situation like Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, where Obi-Wan Kenobi is the mentor and he is also the one who is issuing the call to adventure? I see they do repeat this several times. So I would say, listen, he's got a choice here. He presents him with this choice. Danger is coming. So, the realization that the realization the bug is real is another kind of danger is home. Because I can't dismiss that as a dream. The realization the bug is real. Is he just being produced by like people at that moment? Yeah, because he thought that maybe the weird thing where I couldn't open my mouth because I had no mouth and I got bugged was a dream. The realization the bug is real is formative. So in a sense, that's actually very much danger coming home. Danger in you. Realizing the danger is was in you. So that's formative. Red pill, blue pill moment. This is clearly a choice. And Neo makes the right choice. So it's interesting that he fails his threshold test, and yet they still manage to get him into Act 2. by the agentivity of other people, not him. But it's important that he makes the right choice here. He does not refuse the call here. He reaches for the right pill directly. It's not like he says, "Oh, give me the other pill," or "I'm walking out of here," or whatever right here. He reaches for the pill to take him to adventure. At this point, I would say, especially after, okay, the bug in you, Neo is super motivated. And takes the right pill. At this point, Neo is super motivated for adventure. And then you get more of the Alice in Wonderland kind of imagery right here. Is this interesting? Let's find out exactly when those pills are presented to him. He swallows. Whoa! Neo swallows the pill at 29 minutes and 47 seconds into the movie. So that's the final acceptance of the call. Then we go into the getting him out of the Matrix. And we do this without he takes the pill. Okay, then Morpheus stands up, and then, or we got the trace program. We've got to get him out. And so this is also something that somebody else does, something that the team does. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth. Yes, nothing more. He gets wired up and hooked up. All of that's happening. Again, it's something that's happening to Neo. I also think that a lot of the things that happen to Neo probably work here because of the dreamlike stuff. It's pretty common in dreams to have a whole bunch of weird stuff happening to you. So I think that's what you were supposed to feel when you get that. And then we wake up. The next critical point right here, 30 minutes, 22 seconds. Minutes, 22 seconds into the movie, you see, you have your first shot. You have the first shot of Neo in the pod. Act 2 begins. To me, that is Act 2 beginning. Act 2 begins right there. And if we're talking about dividing a movie into quarters, now say this is a little bit longer, but if it's going to be a 2-hour movie, then you would want your hero out of Act 2 30 minutes in. You'd have 30 minutes for Act 1. You'd have an hour. I mean, right. You had first 25 minutes of this. First 25% of this movie. If you got 120 pages of script or 120 minutes of the movie, then the first 30 minutes is Act 1, and then you got to be out of this. And now we're into Act 2. Act 2 begins basically 30 minutes into this. And that does mean, I would say, so the hypothesis at the beginning of this was right, at least in this case for this movie, that because this has a little bit longer runtime, this is 2 hours and like 14 minutes, not including credits. That means we're going to put the additional time not in Act 1. We did some weird stuff in Act 1 because we didn't have Ordinary World. We did some other non-standard stuff and asking what if in Act 1, but still spent 30 minutes in Act 1. And then we're going to put those other 14 minutes into either Act 2 or Act 3. And I haven't gone forward beyond that. But Act 2 begins. I think it's interesting that I would say interesting. We've been using this term liminal space. Interesting that we talk about, which is not exactly the other world. Okay, so the other world, I mean, in some technical in-universe sense or whatever, but they're talking about liminal space. Being in the pod battery area is definitely that. I mean, the other world proper is on board the starship dealing with stuff in the real world. It's interesting that here, the real world is the other world, and then sort of the standard world is the Matrix, right? But if you're talking about a liminal space between getting the hero from the ordinary world to the other world, and we talked about, well, is there where do you go through a liminal space? Well, this sequence right here, where he's in the pod, and then he's picked up, and then he's on Morpheus's ship, into Act 2, the other world kind of proper. I bet that I would say that this pod sequence is the liminal space. Considering his initial fear, it's completely understandable to the audience that he would take on the adventure, just like Luke finally doing so after his family is killed. Yeah, so that's the removal of the bug. So it's interesting. So the agents weren't enough, but he's not tested. He's not. He doesn't get this bug out, and there's going to be some kind of other test or something like that. Doesn't happen here. But seeing that, seeing the bug. Oh my God, this is real. Is the same moment that Luke has when looking at the burned corpses of Owen and Beru. Yeah. Why didn't I take the blue pill? Yeah, that's a great point, because I hadn't gone further than this because I hadn't had time. Yesterday, I just was able to watch about the first 30 minutes before I did dinner and a board game last night and after dinner and a board game. But that's a great point, that actually we do embody the embodiment, the refusal of the red pill is embodied in the movie with Cypher, right? So when he says, why didn't I take the blue pill? You do get that it's done as regret, because it's done as regret. So yes, he is a willing hero by the time Neo is. He's a willing hero by the time the pills are offered. But then the regret, a subversion, I suppose, and in the way that James is using the term of the refusal of the red pill, is actually still in this movie. It's very interesting. Yeah, the pod sequence is a freaking nightmare. Yeah, especially when he pulls this big tube out of his throat. It's vastly disorienting for Neo and the audience too. So that's my thought about those are the thoughts that I had about Act 1, Neo Act 1. So once again, I think it's important to realize, because people also use the Matrix as the hero's journey. He is going on the hero's journey. And you can see all of the tropes. We can see, or so many of the tropes. We can see so many of our plot points on our story beats. Exactly what is supposed to be happening happens. I would say that some of Drake's philosophy of the ingestion, even when things, but they do some non-standard things. So if you're trying to say, now, hey, no, hold on, I want to write a story. Well, they're doing some non-standard things here. And we have to understand that when a non-standard thing happens, why is it working? Why is it working in this movie? Why would it perhaps not work in other places? Because you don't see these things often. There are non-standard. Why is it working here? And one of the reasons I think that it is working here is because, in what would be Maxwell Alexander Drake's words, the central message of all of the standard story points and tropes is still being ingested by the audience. You're still communicating all of that on a immaterial level. I don't want to say spiritual. I mean, we could say spiritual, but on an immaterial level, even though what's actually happening on screen is the events are actually playing out in a non-standard way. That's my bottom line there. Stray says this was really cool. Well, I hope I enjoyed it. I hope that you enjoyed it too. Well, like I said, we may end up going back to it and some other movies as we get into Act 2 and Act 3. And as I got to get my characters out of Act One. I'm studying Act One specifically because I got to get my characters out of Act One. But also James, I know James isn't here right now, but James had brought up yesterday the idea that we ought to look at Empire Strikes Back, and I'm not ready for that. But I kind of laughed it off yesterday after going through so much Star Wars. I said, oh yeah, Empire Strikes Back. But actually, James is right. I talked to Doug about that. I said, James is right. I'm not ready for that. But everybody talks about, many, many, many people say that Empire Strikes Back is, the best. Oh, that's my favorite movie, Empire Strikes Back. It's such a fantastic, it works as a sequel. It works as a movie. So actually, no, when it's time to get into sequels, we should totally do a structural breakdown of what is happening in Empire Strikes Back. Because I don't see that very often. Like when we're talking about the hero's journey and stuff like that in books, the classic examples that are always used is Star Trek, Star Wars, the original, A New Hope, but the original Star Wars. And yet so many people like Empire Strikes Back. And yet I don't actually see it broken down and analyzed. Why is it working? I think we do need to do that. When this works, the writer understands modular story structure. Essentially, they use Legos. Well, right. I don't think I've actually said something about Legos here, but yeah, the Legos is a good way to think about that because we don't want to say, because the point is, I think this is good. This modular is hitting its beats. It is doing what it's supposed to be doing. It does get you out of Act One in like dead on 30 minutes. You have a fantastic like opening sequence and then 10 minutes and everything that happens. It's happening in a non-standard way, but we don't want to say, we don't want to say this here. And it's true that the books do as well, that when you're talking about something about the hero's journey and things like that, sometimes things move in position. You hear your story beats. This is typically how they happen. But, in certain situations, some things may need to move. If you do something different over here, it's not a straitjacket. I don't in any way. I say that when I seem to be having story problems, it is because there's something wrong with my structure. And so I'm huge on structure because once you have the structure right, I feel like the story then appears, right? And it seems like if the story's not working, it's because of a structural problem. But the structure is not a straitjacket. The structure is not a straitjacket, and I think that's why I'm hugely not anti-structure. I'm hugely not anti-structure, and structure is also not formula. Formula is something different as well. Please do leave a like. Yes. Thank you, Grave. Oh, okay, James. I'm glad you heard that. Okay. So Sablefing says, "Boy, if you can do 4 hours on Star Trek 3, I think we'll need to set up a campsite for the Empire Strikes Back Table Talk episode." We might, and that might have to be a multi-day one where I talk about some stuff on Morning Grind, and then we give it to bring on teams on Table Talk in the evenings to talk about it. Doug and I are going to be talking about Star Wars Tuesday night. Doug is going to be talking about Star Wars on Tuesday night, bringing his perspective on the Heroine's Labyrinth and all of that. So that's coming up. So we're not ready to move on yet. We're still talking about Star Wars, and I still need to contact Drake because I want to talk to him about this issue. All right, well, I'm going to get out of here. We got to do some work. Woke up late today because of the late night yesterday with dinner and a board game. So I got to write. So, all right, everybody, I have really enjoyed this. Everybody, be creative today, be constructive today, and grind on. Later.